Hello everybody, John12 back here again, and welcome back to another DBZ movie review, a part of my 12 Days of Dragon Ball Z, as I'm retitling it, mostly due to the fact that there has been 2 days out of, in point of where I was incapable of giving you a DBZ reviews, which is why I'm giving you 2 on the same day. Nonetheless, today I'm going to give you my review for the 9th Dragon Ball Z animated feature film, titled Dragon Ball Z Bojack Unbound. Now, one of the coolest things about this particular movie is that using the timeline placement of the series with the movies, a lot of them don't really take place within the series. A lot of them you can pinpoint where they kind of fit, but they don't really get to be a part of an arc because of major plot points or major characters that may or may not be featured in that particular movie. But with Bojack Unbound, kind of similar to Dead Zone, fits in the series perfectly without any real major problems, which is supposed to take place in between the Cell Games saga and, of course, the Buu arc. So it takes place in between both storylines, the 7-year gap where the characters were in peace after the defeat of Cell and before the threat of Majin Buu. So that's where this story particularly takes place, which obviously means that the main hero is Teen Gohan, which I personally, when I was a kid, I had a huge problem with it. I remember back in the day, whenever there was a movie of DBZ and Goku was not the main hero, it used to bother me like a madman. I don't know why. I was just stupid little kid. I don't know I really don't know. The point is that Teen Gohan as the hero, or for the majority of the movies post Broly, didn't really feature Goku as the main protagonist until, I want to say, Fusion Reborn. I think Fusion Reborn was the first movie to feature Goku as the main protagonist again after the events of Broly. So everything else is obviously the kids, which is Gohan, Goten, and Trunks. But nonetheless, let's get right down into this movie. Spoilers, if you've not seen it, definitely go check it out, as always with my reviews. Nonetheless, this movie features Bojack as the main antagonist of this animated feature, and essentially, prior to the events of this movie, he was essentially the leader of like some kind of intergalactic feud or what have you, destroying, galaxies or what have you, basically doing what most villains on DBZ do, destroy and try to become the ruler of what have you. So nonetheless, Bojack was locked within a star by the Kais so that he wouldn't really do evil things anymore. But until thousands of years later, due to the destruction of King Kai's planet, thanks to Cell destroying himself and of course Goku instant transmissioning him there, destroyed the star that Bojack was sealed into, and now, while being out, he is out for revenge and possibly singling out Earth as the first stop into ruling a planet again. So destroying, whatever. The point is, Bojack goes to Earth for revenge, which doesn't make any sense, because if the Kais wanted Bojack sealed and they were the purpose that they did that, why go to Earth? I don't know. That's the only thing I find weird, that Bojack went to Earth instead of like trying to attack the Kais. I just found that kind of odd looking back at it. It's like most villains do this, and it doesn't really make sense, because why go there? What's your purpose? What's your meaning? Like, Bojack in this movie doesn't really have a purpose other than the fact that he's just a threat during the time of peace in between both story arcs. So that's kind of where I'm coming with this. Bojack as a villain, I never really liked him. I thought he was kind of just, whatever, and a lot of people like to speculate as to how powerful he is in comparison to Perfect Cell, or Super Perfect Cell, whatever you want to title him. For me personally, I never really liked Bojack. I thought he was kind of a nuisance. He was never really a legitimate threat. And Gohan, really, I find it difficult why. It's kind of similar to the problems I have with Cooler's Revenge. Because in Cooler's Revenge, Goku basically had the power or the ability to defeat Cooler at any point in time. All he had to do was transform into a Super Saiyan and demolish him. That's all he really needed to do. With this movie, Gohan, we already know he's a Super Saiyan 2, which is, at that point in time, the most ultimate transformation within the Saiyan race. So he could have demolished Bojack at any time. I don't know, it's just so annoying that they do that for the movies. But nonetheless, we set into the story of this particular movie. Of course, Bojack has been released and has set his goal to conquer the universe by starting off with Earth, which of course I already stated is a complete waste of time. Anyways, we start off with this movie with the martial arts tournament, which has a different kind of hierarchy with it now. This is obviously post-Cell games, so of course Hercule is the most famous man on Earth now because, allegedly everybody thinks that he was the one who saved Earth from Cell when it was in fact the Z-Warriors and Gohan. Nonetheless, Hercule is the person who brings the comedy into the DBZ universe, and a lot of people like to give Hercule shit. For me personally, as a character, I like Hercule because if it wasn't for Hercule, Majin Buu wouldn't be a nice person. He wouldn't be a hero, and he wouldn't be a part of the Z-Warriors. Then again, a lot of people don't really care for Majin Buu, so... And also, I kind of felt that Goku could have destroyed Majin Buu at any time. So it's really odd, nonetheless. But in my personal opinion, I never had a problem with Hercule, and I always thought he was kind of just a funny joke, just to laugh with. And over after the point of this movie and onward, he's become like a staple with these DBZ movies. So it's time to really get used to him, nonetheless. But anyways, back into the overall plot. Goku is obviously not a part of this movie. He's not really a big factor in this movie, with the exception of a cameo. But nonetheless, we have multiple other characters that are featured in this movie, like Tien, Piccolo, Gohan, obviously Krillin, future Trunks, and of course, we get a small little cameo of Vegeta, which I find really stupid that he was in this movie. Throughout the movie, the entire tournament is actually featured on TV. This is a very public kind of tournament because it has an entire theme where they're going for a sci-fi kind of thing, and because of the success of Hercule and the Cell games, they're making it a very elaborate kind of thing, which I thought was kind of fun and entertaining. Because the World Tournament is always going to be a staple with DBZ, or Dragon Ball in general, so it's fun to have that. But they had this overall theme where, the Ultimate Fighters of whoever was a part of the tournament was supposed to go out to these distant lands or what have you, using these pods to fight aliens, or wrestlers dressed up as aliens, essentially. And it's all televised, and Vegeta's just watching it. Now, I want to put this in perspective, and I want to point this out as like a huge, stupid point in this movie that I personally never liked, and a lot of people have a problem with it, in contrast to my problem with it, which is A, why is Vegeta in this movie, and B, why is he fighting Bojack? First off, over the course, let's just start off very easily. First off, Vegeta at the end of the Cell games pointed out that he would never fight again because he was so ashamed in himself for not really proving himself to Goku at the Cell games. He was ashamed of himself, so he decided and vowed in front of the world that he would never fight again. And that was the end. He never fought. Technically, he trained a lot, that's granted, but he never fought again until Goku returned during the Buu arc. And his sole purpose at that point in time was to finally get his chance to fight Goku and prove himself worthy as a Saiyan, as the Prince of all Saiyans. That was his overall, story arc, which I enjoyed, and I personally think a lot of you enjoyed as well. But in this movie, Vegeta he's basically a spectator. He's watching it at home, which is kind of funny, but a little odd. And at a certain point in time where things go haywire in the tournament, when Bojack and his henchmen, the aliens or whatever, which ironically enough, they never mention what race they are. There's probably like a name for it somewhere, but it's slipping my mind as we do this review. Nonetheless, Vegeta watches it, sees that they're in trouble, and goes to help them out for a little bit, which obviously Vegeta really was no real help at all in general with this movie. So for me personally, I always felt that this movie was a complete waste of time for him. I think at this point in time, until Fusion Reborn, or Wrath of the Dragon, if you will, until those movies came around, Vegeta and Goku had no purpose in being in the movies. Looking at it in perspective, of course. When I was a kid, I was like, yeah, Vegeta, yeah! Now it's like, that you didn't really need to be there. But let me know what you personally think. In the comment section below, did you think Vegeta needed to be in this movie? And if he did, what are your personal thoughts on it, looking in perspective? And did you like it overall? But at the end of the day, we have a whole bunch of very interesting fights. We get to see Tien and Trunks fight, which is kind of pretty badass. I always enjoyed that fight because Future Trunks is obviously superior to Tien, but Tien still puts an effort in fighting, which I always enjoyed with his character, because Yamcha, in comparison, and in this movie especially, is obviously at the point where he knows that he's inferior in comparison to all his other friends, especially, the Saiyan characters. So he's kind of like, there's no point in me even training or even fighting anymore, which is why when we meet him again in the Buu arc, he quit fighting, and he's no longer a martial artist. So I think this was like the point in time after Cell Games, post Cell Games, where it's like you kind of get that factor in it. But I always encouraged and loved the lesser characters getting their kind of Saiyan, and Tien is definitely one of those characters that I really love seeing, and just to see him have a fight with Future Trunks is so badass. Nonetheless, we have a whole bunch of other comedic awesome fights with, Krillin and Piccolo and whoever, and Krillin obviously brings up the comedy, which is always awesome. Nonetheless, during the time in the tournament, everything starts to go haywire. Bojack and his henchmen are basically trying to take down the entire tournament and try to eliminate all the warriors, and specifically the Z Warriors. And of course, hell ensues. Everybody has to, it's every man for himself. The henchmen versus the Z Warriors. Trunks, hands down, has the best fight he's ever had in any of these movies. Personally, I love Future Trunks and Broly. I thought he was a badass in there. Super Android 13, I thought Trunks was kind of worthless in that movie. I think he really didn't have any, he wasn't really justified in that movie, personally, in my opinion. But in this movie, he fucking kills it. That fight he has with that other dude with the sword, so badass. It was so solid of a fight. It was amazing. It was beautifully done. I love that moment when they're running in formation, and they're just waiting for someone to make a move, and they're just looking at each other like, make a move, you little fuck. I'm gonna fuck you up the second you even try something. I love that moment, and that moment defines Future Trunks. I love that shit. Well, not defines him as a character, but defines him as a fighter, in my personal opinion. That's just me. Nonetheless, we have awesome other fights and cool little characters that have their own special abilities, like that one henchman who has like this weird spider lining kind of ability that traps characters in their footsteps or whatever, which is really weird but cool at the same time. Gohan obviously is trying to kick ass. He's trying to follow in his father's footsteps while wearing Goku's outfit, which I thought was weird that he wore. As much as I like Gohan when he wears the classic gi, I thought it was kind of weird that he wore it in this movie, because in the series itself, it's implied the first time Gohan ever wears the suit is during the Saiyan Saga, and he doesn't wear it again until he's an adult in the Buu arcs, when he becomes Ultimate Gohan. So I thought it was kind of weird that they had him wear in this movie, but not in his other appearance in the other movie, like Broly's Second Coming, which would have been way more appropriate if he wore it there. But nonetheless, I think he does wear it later on in future movies, so it doesn't really matter. But nonetheless, I always thought that was kind of weird, that Teen Gohan wearing that outfit. Although it's cool, I like it. It's an interesting choice, but I always thought it was a weird choice. Nonetheless, Gohan is obviously badass. He's kicking ass. He becomes a Super Saiyan 2, and starts kicking Bojack's ass and kills his ass. Beforehand, Goku actually makes a little appearance where Gohan's obviously struggling within the fight, and he uses his instant transmission to transmit himself from Otherworld to the fight, where he blocks Bojack's attack, and of course helps out his son, and has that this little weird sentimental moment, which once again, similar thing to Vegeta, Goku didn't really need to be in this movie. All Gohan had to be was transform into a Super Saiyan 2, and that's pretty much the gist. He didn't really need to be in this movie. So, once again, kind of similar to the Vegeta thing. Let me know what you personally think about that in the comment section below. Did you think Goku needed to be in this movie? And what did you think about that sequence where he instant transmission himself from Otherworld to Earth for a small moment in time? Nonetheless, Bojack and all the other henchmen are obviously getting defeated, kind of similar to the Cell Juniors in the Cell games. Gohan's just kicking ass, he's killing motherfuckers, and then uses his Super Kamehameha wave to destroy everybody, specifically Bojack after unleashing hell on him. Just an amazing shot, beautifully done animation-wise. And of course, the day is saved thanks to Gohan, or thanks to Hercule, which everybody likes to think that he actually did everything, even though he didn't. It was actually Gohan, but, the Earthlings in this series, after the Cell games, are just so stupid. What are you going to do? But nonetheless, that's pretty much the gist of the story. And I like it. It's definitely a very underrated movie. I think, looking back at it in perspective, it's very underrated. I like it a lot. I was surprised at how much I really enjoyed this movie during this basic review, nonetheless. But I just thought it was very good. I mean, the villain, I was never really big on. Even to this day, I still think Bojack is a very inferior villain with no real motives. He was just there just to be a threat, and that was kind of it. He didn't really serve any purpose. I mean, I'm just saying, if the Kais fucked you over back in the day, why go to Earth? Why not just go after the Kais? That would have been a way more interesting plot. But nonetheless, everything else was cool. The animation's solid. Gohan as the hero, fucking awesome. Goku and Vegeta didn't really need to be in this movie. I felt they were kind of just pointless cameos in this movie. But everything else was awesome. Future Trunks kills it. All the Z Warriors kill it. Hercule's comedy. What are you going to do? So overall, I have to give this movie a good, I want to say an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10, I think. Maybe a 7.5. It has to be one of those two. It's hard to say, because as much as I like it and think it's underrated, it's also not overrated, because there's still things that are inappropriately weird for me in this movie. Absurdly, rather. So, at the end of the day, I'm going to give it a 7.5. It's a good, solid movie. Definitely check it out. And it's, of course, the only movie next to Dead Zone that can fit within the series perfectly. So perfectly. Nonetheless, this has been my review for Dragon Ball Z Bojack Unbound. Hope you guys enjoyed. In the comment section below, let me know what you personally thought about the villain, his motives. What did you think about Team Gohan as the hero? Would you have liked to have seen more movies with Gohan as the hero? Let me know what you personally thought about that. Also, what did you think about Goku and Vegeta's cameos in this movie? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Did you think they were pointless like me? And also, just let me know what you personally think about the movie itself. Personally, I like it. I think it's solid. I love the music. It's kind of cool. The animation's great. The art direction's great. Of course, always with most of these DBZ movies. But nonetheless, I think it's a solid 7.5. It's a good movie. It's not the best, and it's not my favorite, but it's definitely a solid, good movie. So, let me know what you personally thought. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. And definitely check out the prior movies I've done already. And this has been Johnch12.